It's that reality show after hours. I'm Helga. It's a reality show. Basically, we try to be real. I came to the realization a while ago. I tried. I went on Google. I tried to document my background. I discovered that a lot of the more exciting parts of it I can't document. Now, imagine you're a fictional character created by a fictional character, because the fictional character that created this fictional character was a fiction made up to stay alive. It was a game I was playing, because I was always Helga. So back when I was 3 or 4 years old, because my grandmother slapped me, I created a character called John that made people happy. Basically, I decided that when people weren't looking, I wouldn't wear dresses, I wouldn't dance and twirl, or anything else that would be called sissy stuff. So I played the John game. Some of that's documented, some of it isn't. Some is documented in school records. I wasn't a very good student. I learned, but it didn't show up my grades. I graduated in the upper fifth of my class simply because I did good in English and history and stuff. Didn't do good in math. Didn't do my homework. But that was perfectly fine because I didn't expect to live beyond 10. In fact, I was going to do myself in at 10. That didn't happen. Didn't want to leave a mess for other people to clean up. I saw what a mess a death of a child in a family does. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that to my family. You know, I continued playing the game. But I decided to try and document the period of time after I graduated high school. College records are gone because I didn't graduate. I got no records of my ever attending college because I didn't graduate. When you don't graduate, they throw your records away. After a few years, they throw your records away because they figure you're not coming back. Who cares? I went into the Army. I served. I was drafted. I got caught in bed with another soldier. That didn't get documented because it was embarrassing to the unit that they couldn't kick us out because both essential personnel, they couldn't make the unit function without either one of us. I was an essential person. Even though I was a six-leave private, I was an essential person. They couldn't run the unit without me. Gotta love it. Fred, who I got caught in bed with, was the armorer who had signed for all of the weapons in the entire brigade because they couldn't find another armorer. Because they were sending everybody to Vietnam. And I guess armorers had big targets on their back in Southeast Asia. Being an armorer is a very, very stressful position. And you got to go to school for it. It's a lonely position because they don't want very many people signing for all the weapons. That would not be a good thing. They couldn't kick either one of us out. So they swept the whole incident under the rug. They transferred me. Things went to normal. He tried to get me to re-enlist even. But I figured I didn't have a chance of getting any rank, so I re-enlist. Rotated out of the Army. I started working at primate research as an animal caretaker because it was the quickest job I could find. Didn't do very good there. I tattooed monkeys. I shot monkeys up with and anesthetic so that I could tattoo them, and sewed the monkeys back together when they tore each other apart. Yeah, got real good at that. That was a handy skill to have later on. But I had this need to become authentic. The only place in the country I could get what I needed was California. So I figured I'm going to go to California. So I quit the job at Primate Research, took the money I had, bought a VW microbus, worked at a couple odd jobs just to keep, just to get some money to go west. Had a little bit of money saved up. I got talked into going to New York instead. So lots of work for motorcycle mechanics in New York. Okay. So I went to New York against my better judgment. It was a big mistake. Housing is very expensive there. And what I wanted wasn't available in New York. But I could break into the music scene, make enough money, working a day job as a motorcycle mechanic and working night as a musician. Yeah, I figured I could get together a stake and make it to California. Unfortunately, housing in New York, there was a thing called rent control. When an apartment becomes vacant, the rent doubles. There were very, very few affordable apartments in New York, and they were flea traps. The first place we tried was just, $500 a week, and it was just a dump. Basically, it was 2 cots and a hot plate in a room that you couldn't straighten your arms out, touch both walls, and the bathroom was down the hall. Wasn't an acceptable place. It was unaffordable without a roommate. Well, I picked up a roommate at the shop I was working in, and we started looking for other places. We answered an ad in the Times for a railroad flat on the Lower East Side, which is pretty much where I wanted to be. That's where things were happening. It was owned by Trump Realty Company. Now, Mr. Trump had a way of dealing with rent control. He took the front door off the building to get fast turnover on the units, and then never did any maintenance on the place. Anything in the apartment, once you rented the apartment, was your responsibility to fix. And he made it a point when the rooms became vacant to take the locks off the doors. The local junkies and drunks, they turned the water off too. They turned the water off in the apartments. A smart move. So if the junkies and the drunks used the toilet would fill up to the top. Moved in there, first thing I had to do is replace the toilet because the stuff in the toilet had congealed into a solid rock. Couldn't clean the toilet, couldn't make it work. So I just went to the hardware store, bought a new toilet, put it in. Put new lock on the door. I figured, okay, I got an apartment. Moved my stuff into the apartment, fine. 2 days later, come home from work. Roommate said that, hey, a guy came, robbed me for the guitar, robbed me for the 12 string. That sucked. So, payday. I still had the six. I had 2 6 strings. I had one that was a cheap plywood guitar. It was my first guitar. It was all painted psychedelic, and it played. That was a Gibson LGO that I had up in my bed. 3 days later, Gary got caught with the LGO. The guy took it. Now I had just a cheap plywood guitar. Couldn't work with it. Went down to the pawn shop. I'm auditioning the 12-string Dan Electro, Hodad with a whammy bar, plugged into a Marshall. I'm wailing with it. Jerry Garcia is in town with the Grateful Dead. They're going to play Central Park that weekend. He hears me play and he walks in there. I'm ready to close the deal on the guitar, and Jerry says, "Hey, you want to play Central Park with us Sunday?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So there I am, Sunday afternoon, Central Park, stand between Jerry and Phil, playing the 12-string. Ain't nothing better. Monday evening, 12-string disappeared. Monday afternoon, 12-string disappeared. Same way. It got bad. I went through, in a 3-week period, I went through 6 guitars. I decided that maybe making music wasn't a good way of doing things. So I decided, well, I took professional instruction on how to race motorcycles while I was in the Army because I was bored. And a world champion motorcycle racer lived across the fence from where I was stationed. So I talked him into giving me some lessons. I had to earn the seat. Well, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, I learned how to ride a motorcycle pretty well. We played in the Alert area. Well, I bought a motorcycle from the shop where I was working. Rode it up to Ithaca to a motocross track there, and I did really well. But I was afraid of breaking the bike, so I didn't push the bike very hard. But I did really well. I had a lot of fun. I said, I made money. I actually got money for showing up and racing and placing. Okay. Next weekend, I bought a truck. It was the week of my birthday. Samantha, the girl I found in my bed, bought me a nice new shirt for my birthday. So I put the new shirt on, go upstate and buy a truck to haul the motorcycle back and forth to the track. Stick the temporary plate off the motorcycle in the back window of the truck, come back in, park the truck in the parking garage. Well, a few days earlier, the same guy that ripped me off my guitars decided he was going to do a home invasion and get money. We didn't have anything worth stealing anymore because he'd stolen it all. So he's going to try and do a home invasion for money because he was desperate for junk. I come home from work. He's got everybody in the apartment. I brought in a lot of roommates for witnesses because my door disappeared along with the locks I'd bought. So I moved some people in for witnesses just so that he couldn't rip us off quite so easy. So he did a home invasion. He got $20 off of me. The place was too crowded for me to take the gun away from him. I would have, because I was training the MPs. I got real good at taking guns away from people. Yeah, the MPs just couldn't hold on to a gun within 5 feet of me. Yeah, I was training them how to hold on to their guns. It was a game with me. And I was teaching them other moves too. It seems that the military, basically because they wanted me to be an infantryman, and I was basically a ground pounder foot soldier, they taught me how 100 different ways of killing people. Walking back from dropping the truck off in the parking garage, I picked up a couple of hitchhikers while I was coming back to the city with the truck. And they gave me some stuff they said was THC. It wasn't, it was PCP. So I'm getting off on the PCP and I'm having troubles functioning. About 3 blocks from my apartment, I feel a gun in my ribs. And I get kind of nudged over towards the alley. I looks and it's that guy that had done the home invasion. I recognized him. I was getting sick of being ripped off, and this fool ripped me off for more than I really wanted to be ripped off for. So I reached into my pockets, ostensibly thought to get him money. While I still had my hands in my pocket, I hauled off and kicked him in the balls. At the same time, with the other hand that wasn't in my pocket, I took his gun away from him. When his chin came down to easy level with the other foot, I kicked him in the jaw with enough force that if it had been a football, it would have been a 75-yard punt. There were teeth everywhere. Caught him right in the jaw with a sickening crack. I think he was dead before he hit the ground. Didn't check because I was so angry at him accosting me like that. I still had the gun in my hand, holding on to it by the cylinder. I started working his face over with the gun. After about 5 minutes of this, I came to my senses. What the fuck am I doing? I can't be doing this. I get up, still have the gun in my hand, walk the rest of the way back to my apartment. Walk into my apartment, my brand new shirt that Samantha had given me to me for my birthday was covered in blood. Everybody in the apartment, I had 14 people in the apartment, look at me. They notice there's not a mark on me. I'm still holding this gun in my hand. One of the grips is broken off of it. There's stuff hanging on it. They say, we got to leave town. So I wash off a little bit, take the shirt off, throw it in the trash, change clothes, go back and get the truck. There's nothing left of my worldly possessions. That junkie'd taken everything. Crowd 14 people and my motorcycle, which was still in the truck, into the truck. It's a panel truck. Not a big panel truck. It's only a half-tonner, which means it's 8 feet from the back of the driver's seat to the back doors. Shove 14 people in there and head west. Well, Samantha had some money. I had a little bit of money. We head west. Pennsylvania, 3 people bail out because the foot peg of the motorcycle was digging into one guy's back. The other guys were nervous because the back door kept coming open. So 3 people jump out in Pennsylvania. Well, by this time, I was starting to hear a howl from the back end of the truck. We made it to Dayton, Ohio before the truck stopped moving. It went crunch and quick. Well, I thought it was the transmission because it's what it sounded like. So I go to the junkyard, buy a transmission, put the transmission in. Truck doesn't move. We end up putting a differential in the truck alongside the road. Put a differential in the truck, fill up the grease, continue westward. Get to Dayton, Ohio, we're out of money. Sold the motorcycle. I mean, no, not Dayton, Dodge City, Kansas. We sold the motorcycle for twice what I paid for it. Nobody ever seen a motorcycle like that. It was a nice scrambler, and it was a good scrambler. The thing was fast. It was broken in, and they'd never seen one like it. So sold the motorcycle for twice what I paid for it. I bought it at cost. We get to Tulsa, Oklahoma, stopped for gas. Okay, there's 11 people standing in line at both restrooms. The service attendant called the cops because we were long-haired hippie freaks. 4 of the people in the group had come from Andy Warhol's factory. 2 of them had come from basically people on the street, a street gang called the New York Motherfuckers, which every other gang in town was afraid of them because they were not people you mess with. And well, I had Andy Warhol's personal acid dealer with me, one of the people there. Had John from the STP family. Samantha, who had been starred in one of Andy Warhol's movies. Spirit, who was a runaway. I have no idea how old Spirit was. I figure he's about 16. He's making a living dealing green flats. And then Gary, who, before he came to New York, he was the bassist for the Stone Ponies. And Leslie Kerwin, who was Honda Racing Team's factory mechanic. Now he was top chief mechanic for Mike Halewood in the 60s. He was a salesman for this place I was working. He left with me too. He was the roommate. He was a lot older than the rest of us. They arrested us all for vagrancy. Yeah, vagrancy, not standing around without sufficient means of support. They didn't check the reg on the truck, the fact that the temporary plate was from the motorcycle that I no longer had. They didn't check any of that stuff. It was a truck with a temp, New York temp, from out of state. They locked us up. Well, this would have been fine. They would have arraigned us. They would have arraigned us Monday morning, because it was Sunday when they arrested us. Except one of the deputy sheriffs decided he was going to make an example out of me for some reason or another. I guess because I was sitting in the back to the bars. He says, "Boy, I'm going to cut your hair." He grabs me by the hair and pulls. Well, I'd had about enough of this bullshit. And my temper was very thin because I hadn't been sleeping very good. And here I am in jail. Not really wanting to be in jail. I didn't deserve to be in jail. I didn't even deserve to be stuck in Tulsa like this. I'd gotten rudely ripped out of my roots and my comfortable life by this idiot sticking a gun in my ribs. Now I'm on the run. "Boy, I'm going to cut your hair." So I grabbed him by the wrist. Reached over my shoulder, grabbed him by the wrist, and pulled real hard. His face makes a horrible clang against there. And I said, And he's still giving me a hard time, so I pull again 3 or 4 times, and I let go. He falls down on the floor. They put us in the hole because nobody would rat out the others. No. They put us all in the hole for a week. We get to court. Now, Samantha showed up in my bed one night. She was pregnant. Just starting to show. By the time this episode in jail had come to a head where we ended up in court, she was starting to show a lot. She was starting to get big. So we elected her spokesperson. So she gets up in front of the judge and said, "Look, we stopped for gas." They rounded us up and arrested us. "We have money to finish our trip. We've lost a couple of weeks' time now because of this bullshit in the jail. Your deputy is mistreating us and then punishing us for reacting to being mistreated. We are innocent. We were arrested on a trumped up, no good charge. And if you let us go, we'll leave town and we won't sue you. Besides that, you don't want me to have a baby in your jail. The judge looked at him, looked at the sheriff. Is what they're saying true? Yeah, they were standing at a gas station waiting in line. Okay. Case dismissed. Well, we were covered with lice. Our clothes were dirty from travel, and then we'd been in jail in our street clothes because they didn't feel, we've been not arraigned, so they didn't give us coveralls. They just had us in our street clothes. Well, we got really nasty in the hole. Vista Volunteer comes to us and says, "Hey, we can take care of you. We're going to fix you up. We're going to clean you up, help you get clothes and stuff like that." We had to burn our clothes. So 3 days later, we're back on our way west. Going through Utah, because we're heading for Sacramento, Santa Rosa area. Going through Utah, we lost our generator. Pulled off in a gas station overnight, charged the battery, put brushes in the generator, repolarized it, continued on our way. But we drove about 70 miles in the dark before we got to civilization in Utah. That was interesting. Thing was just barely running. We found a place where we could fix the truck. I realized I could drive in the dark without lights. Got to Santa Rosa just in time to see the moon landing. Then it got weird. But I can't document any of that stuff because naturally Tulsa didn't keep a record of the arrest. They didn't keep a record of the time. From the time I left New York, I was Harry Peterson. Because the person that killed the guy in New York had reported the home invasion to the cops and told the cops what would happen to that guy if I caught him first. So I couldn't work under my own name. That got interesting. Got a job in a cycle shop after about a week of thrashing around looking for work. I got a job in a cycle shop, working for the sales department and assembling motorcycles. Basically, I got a commission on any motorcycle I sold. And I told them that I'd raced and had some formal training. Okay. So I was their demonstration rider at the racetracks, working under an assumed name with no more medical insurance. Put on a good show for the customers, won a few races, broke a few motorcycles, and started moving up into the bigger events. Well, AMA at the time basically assumed that motorcycle racers were one-trick ponies, and we had a whole line of motorcycles to sell. And they decided they had two shops. Two shops were now sponsoring my racing, because if one shop didn't have a bike they wanted to push, the other shop did. So I took on another assumed name to race for the other shop. So there I was racing under two assumed names. Harry Peterson and George Lewis. There's George Lewis. I signed up for the Pro-Am 500 at Sears Point, which was a road race. I'd never road raced before. I'd ridden on the street. I was pretty quick on the street. One day to break in an H1 Kawasaki, I took a trip to Bakersfield and back. Went down to Bakersfield from Vallejo, ate lunch in Bakersfield, and made it back by quitting time. I went through 6 tanks of gas and 2 tanks of oil. And when the bike was moving, the speedometer was never below 120. It was a fun trip. But it taught me a lot. They set up an X6 because we had a warehouse full of X6s. We couldn't sell the damn things. They were light and powerful, but it was a Suzuki. Nobody ever heard of Suzukis. 45 horsepower at 211 pounds with a 6-speed transmission. AMA made you lock out one transmission to make things even. So they locked out low gear. Well, Wesley took 2 bikes, uncrated 2 bikes, set up one for a practice bike so I could get the hang of the track. We installed compression releases on them because I said I can't slow down for the hairpin. I can't get the thing slowed down enough for the hairpin to get the speed I know I can do on the back straight. We got to do something about that. So we installed compression releases on both bikes. Nobody had heard of a compression release on a TT bike. It was a novel, untested, revolutionary step because back then the motorcycles had drum brakes. Going hot into a hairpin turn with a drum brake was suicidal behavior. That brake get hot, you have one application, and going through the corners and stuff like that, you're on the brakes all the time. So you're coming off the back with the brake is already hot and you're going into the hairpin because it doesn't have time to cool. Drum brake is a wonderful heat storage device. So we put the compression release in. And I earned pole position because I could come off that back street straight hot and be in the right gear coming out of the hairpin. All I had to do is dump the compression release. I'd have the right gear and right throttle open to go out of the hairpin. And well, got pole position. Race day comes. We're in the starting grid. The bike for the race, we warmed it up a couple times, run it enough to get the tires sticky, and then parked it. Bring the thing into the starting grid. And while we're idling there at the starting grid, getting ready to go, the engine seized up. 5-minute delay. They roll the race bike back into the pits, roll the practice bike out with a full tank of gas, full tank of oil, because we put fresh tires on it. I go into the Pro-Am 500 with a bike with about 1,500 very, very hard miles on them, and with its original cables, including the compression release. Now, ABC Sports had taken an interest in me while I was practicing, and they were following me. They had cameras on me for the whole race, and they were trying to figure out how I was negotiating the hairpin, because everybody else was slowing way down for the hairpin. I was coming into the hairpin hot, downshifting like crazy, not even touching the brakes, slowing down enough to negotiate the hairpin, and then burning back out through the hairpin faster than anybody had ever seen. So they had 4 cameras on me. I come into the hairpin hot like I was doing about $1. I'd come off the back straight about $1.15. I'd start slowing down for the hairpin. I was doing about $1.15 when I start slowing down. Squeezed the compression release cable and it went limp in my hand. I knew I was going to go down. But then I had stuffed a 305 Honda underneath the car about a week earlier. So I knew I could lay a bike down and survive. So I laid it down and kicked it away. I did an Evel Knievel flop around the hairpin as the motorcycle kept going straight, bounced off the rail of the track, flew up in the air and hit the chain link fence, still doing something in excess of 100 miles an hour. I came to rest head first against a hay bale. ABC has footage. That's one of the few experiences I can actually document. ABC has footage of a George Lewis hitting a hay bale head first at 53 miles an hour. There was no George Lewis. There never was a George Lewis. Just as there never was a Harry Peterson. It was John all along, but I didn't dare say anything. I crushed my larynx. I have no Adam's apple. I couldn't talk for about a week. Lost a whole octave off of my singing voice. In fact, pretty much lost control of my singing voice altogether. Needless to say, I also lost my job because I had destroyed about $5,500 worth of racing bike. I didn't finish the race. The bike wrecked. The bike flew apart into a million little pieces. No longer had a job. Well, I was living across the street from the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels. Bless their hearts. They liked me because I'd be out practicing, right, tearing up the streets and tearing up the woods on a 305 Honda. And they didn't particularly like Japanese motorcycles. For some reason, the Hells Angels are addicted to Harleys. But they also couldn't catch me to harass me. And I explained to them while I was sitting there getting high with them, assembling a Harley 45 on the coffee table, that the only reason I was racing Japanese bikes is that's what the dealership was worked for sold. I'd had an Indian, but I didn't even own a motorcycle. I sold mine coming across the country. Didn't tell them what kind of motorcycle it was. I sold my motorcycle coming across the country because I had too many people to feed. Oh, we'll steal you one. You want to join? No. I'm pretty much, I'm going to ride with, well, they followed me around to the races because they loved watching me race. When I went down at Sears Point, I didn't have medical insurance. I had an 1.5 acre pavement rash because I'd been wearing a suit of leathers and denims underneath that. I'd gone through the leathers and the denim sliding around the hairpin. So they gave me they mixed up a poultice made out of baking soda and cocaine, rubbed it on the pavement rash. And that's how the pavement rash was treated. Very nice. Well, after Sears Point, they decided that I was a really, really cool thing I did. It was the most spectacular spill any of them had ever seen. And it ended up on camera. In fact, I had 9-month runners for Wild World of Sports, Agony of Defeat. And I didn't do it under my own name. Because when I wrecked, I was George Lewis. Well, push comes to shove, they decided, well, we want you to join our club. We'll even steal a motorcycle for you so you can have a motorcycle. This animal approaching me, and he'd just come off a run of speed, so he was doing reds to, get over the speed. So he was kind of cranky and angry. I said, no, I don't want to join your motorcycle club because I'm not a club type. I never joined a fraternity in college because I'm not a club type. Why would I want to? I don't want to join a motorcycle club. I mean, you guys, I like you guys. I don't want to join your club. Well, animal beat me into the front yard. I knew he would. I've been beaten up before. No biggie. He goes back to the clubhouse thinking that he taught this punk a lesson. Go in the house, clean myself up. Walk down to the grocery store, buy a gallon of Red Mountain Burgundy. Walk into the clubhouse and share it with the club. Show them there's no hard feelings. And told them that I'm not Harry Peterson or George Lewis. I'm Mad John. So, to the Hells Angels and everybody else that knew me out west, I was Mad John. I did the coffee house circuit as Mad John. Nobody ever wrote anything down the coffee house circuit. But I had quite a following. Some of the old timers in the music world, heard of me because I wrote some interesting pieces of music. I wrote about tripping, traveling on the road, and doing stuff like that. Well, because I wasn't working anymore, and because I'd suddenly ended up homeless, I was living in my panel truck, because I'd lost my job, I took up, playing music at coffee houses with borrowed instruments, and working in various acid labs, and trying to run a sliding scale garage in the People's Industrial Park with minimal tooling. I was doing pretty good with minimal tooling. I only got sued a couple of times. Guy ran a garage across the street, dropped the battery on his foot. I ended up having the Oakland chapter of the Black Panthers as customers that fell into my lap. Well, that was a nice thing because I didn't feel threatened by black people. In fact, I felt comfortable around them because both of the people in the Army I'd had affairs with, both the soldiers in the Army I had affairs with were black men. And all my dad's co-workers were black men. I got to know them. Color didn't mean a thing to me. And Eldridge Cleaver was a hero of mine because I had read Soul on Ice enough times before the cover was loose on the book and there were tear stains on some of the pages, and I was carrying it in my pocket. I'm in the Black Panthers headquarters one day, picking up a car, and Soul on Ice fell out of my pocket. Eldridge picked it up and saw the tear stains. I got a hug. Anyway, life was like that. I can't document a bit of it. That's the old lady, I think. I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to check the caller ID.
Call from Robert Golas.
Oh, I know. That's Kayla.
Call from Robert.
Oh, I got to get that. Oh, I got to get that.
Robert Golas.
Hey, Kayla. Not a whole lot. I'm doing a that reality show after hours, talking about how I can't document my past. Yeah, you come by for a little bit. I got a Christmas present for you. It's a nice Christmas present. You'll like it. And I'll end up with something out of it too, I hope. Okay, Michael has already gone to bed. Okay, so I'm pretty much stay down here. Okay. Yeah, bye-bye. And that is why this is a reality show, because reality always intrudes. Now, you're probably noticing my background now. Now, I told you how I got to hang out with Jerry. Well, while I was living in the truck in Berkeley, I was living on University Avenue, Berkeley, but hanging out on Telegraph Avenue. And working in the People's Industrial Park until I earned a space. I hadn't earned a space in the People's Industrial Park yet. Well, May and Jerry and Terry the Tramp, Jerry decided he wanted us to be guinea pigs for a new batch of Purple Osley. So we each did a hit of Purple Osley. We tripped for a while together and went our separate ways. We got back to the Mediterranean the next morning. And I said, you know what? I felt like I was a perambulating eyeball. This whole time I was tripping. And I sat down on a cocktail napkin and drew the picture that you see here. I'll learn to use a green screen yet. That is Seymour. Now, Seymour is a tribute to quite a few cartoon characters. The texture is straight R crumb. The hat comes from several Walt Disney characters. That's a Walt Disney plug hat. The eyeball came to me during the trip. The three-fingered gloves are courtesy of Warner Brothers Cartoon Factory. The jeans and the sneakers are Gustavo Riello's Gordo. Been trying to animate him for years. He was the star of a comic book I did called Edge City Comics that I never managed to get published. But that character graces two Grateful Dead albums. One of the Persistence of Vision. And it's on several others. You look for him, you'll find him on several other Grateful Dead albums, but he's featured on Persistence of Vision. But that's the story of Seymour, one of the other documented triumphs of me as a cartoonist. The other one's undocumented because of the hive mentality of the Berkeley Barb. I worked there as a cartoonist there too. Because I had to earn a living. Even a homeless person has to work. So it is. Facebook will never document the past of Helga Mann because Helga Mann is a fictional character made up by another fictional character named John, who made up another fictional character named Mad John, who is operating as Harry Peterson and George Lewis out west. Because you can run, you cannot hide and keep your name. What's a name anyway? I'm Helga. I've always been Helga. I will always be Helga. Even though other people call me names. It's a reality show, even though I deal in unreality because I'm a fictional character created by another fictional character.